Well, thank you for that really kind introduction. It has been a busy day today, but it's really my pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation to come and have a conversation with you about some of the work that we're doing. I'm honored to really address a group of people who work on issues that are so important to so many of my constituents. So the First District of Oregon, which is the district I represent, has a part of Portland, but it goes through what's called the Silicon Forest. It's like the Silicon Valley with trees. Goes all the way over to the Oregon coast. So the north part of the Oregon coast is in the district I'm honored to represent. And I know that the health and the productivity of the ocean play such a central role in the livelihood and quality of life of many of the constituents, from salmon, crab, whiting fisheries to the navigators and other mariners who help goods arrive at the ports. Everyone relies on the health and safety of the ocean, and I have to say one of the biggest industries over there is tourism, and again, so important to have a healthy ocean for everyone who comes to visit and just take advantage of the beautiful scenery we have. No better example than the community reaction from the debris, which was mentioned in the introduction, from the tsunami that devastated Japan. That was in March of 2011. And there was sort of an immediate reaction on the coast, on the northwest coast, and people really came together as a community. Just a few months after I took office, I've been in office about 2 years now, a 66-foot dock washed up onto the beach just south of my district, and it had floated across the ocean, bringing a host of potentially invasive species, a serious navigation hazard, and plus it was an indication that there was debris out there. And we kept talking with NOAA and others who said, well, we know it's there, we don't know where exactly, we don't know how much, we don't know when it's coming, but we know it is coming. So the community got together. Of course, invasive species are a serious problem that could threaten the health of the ecosystem and threaten the fishing economy and tourism. So the dock only had a couple inches above the water, and obviously that's dangerous for fishermen and navigators. It made its way up onto the shore, and then it sat there for a while and then was destroyed. But I worked with NOAA and colleagues on both sides of the aisle and introduced two bills to speed up debris cleanup and help local communities and governments finance cleanup costs. We had a lot of roundtable discussions about who's going to clean up this debris and is it safe to pick up and what do you do with it. So one of these bills is called the Marine Debris Emergency Act, and it requires a quicker turnaround of marine debris cleanup if there's a severe debris event, and that's defined, of course. It allows NOAA to give preference to those severe debris events. And then the other bill is a little more simple. Japan, if you recall, gave $5 million to help clean up tsunami debris. But because of the existing law, that could not be used for anything that had already been done. And this just allows NOAA, does not require, but allows NOAA the flexibility to reimburse states, local governments, and tribes for work that they've already done cleaning up the tsunami debris. That's what the funds are for. So those two bills passed unanimously out of the House Natural Resources Committee. They're actually included now in legislation to reauthorize Coast Guard. So we're hoping to see that on the House floor soon. It's maybe an example of how long it takes to get things through Congress, since it's been a couple years. But they're well on their way, and strong bipartisan support for those. So we're hoping that those get through soon. And you heard in the introduction that I'm the ranking member on the Environment Subcommittee and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. We focus a lot on research, and I am supporting and advocating for enhanced ocean research, especially areas of interest to you, the harmful algal blooms, and of course hypoxia and ocean acidification. So those are areas where we're hoping to gather bipartisan support. The Senate recently passed bipartisan legislation to reauthorize the Harmful Algal Blooms and Hypoxia Research and Control Act. I'm surprised it doesn't have a clever acronym, but we could come up with one. So I'm working with my colleagues in the House to work on that, to get that through the House. There's some talk on the House side now of an effort to reauthorize the Federal Ocean Acidification Research and Management Act, or the FORAM Act. And ocean acidification is I think, an increasing part of the discussion about climate change when we talk about how climate change and warming temperatures are affecting industries. We've met with folks from the shellfish industry and having to make adaptations. So I'm really interested to hear from you and to work with you on your thoughts on how important that is. I'm working with the chairman of the subcommittee to try to bring these issues forward. And another effort that I'm involved with is wave energy research. Oregon has potential to be the home to an important test site for wave energy devices that seek to tap natural energy. I know Oregon State, Dean Abbott is here, Oregon State University's Northwest National Marine Renewable Energy Center is already a leader in developing a test facility, and that needs support from the federal government in terms of funding. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden has introduced a bill to reauthorize the Department of Energy's Marine and Hydrokinetic Energy Research and Development Program. I'm working on companion legislation in the House that has not been introduced yet. I just recently had a meeting out in beautiful Astoria, Oregon, with several folks in the fishing community, and they expressed some concerns and asked a lot of questions, so we're researching those and getting back to them with some of the answers. Oregon recently did a lot of work on the Territorial Sea Plan, and I look at that as a model building on that, so devoting resources to comprehensive coastal and marine spatial planning for federal waters as well. And it's important that any research on wave energy devices can also include extensive research on the environmental impact and also the availability of commercial recreational uses and quality of life for coastal residents. So we're proceeding with a lot of caution on this issue. We see the potential, but we want to make sure that we do it right. I'm bringing together and had my first meeting in Oregon of a Science, Space, and Technology Advisory Board in Oregon with heads of our research universities, NOAA's West Coast offices, and I'm hoping to learn from them about research priorities and have their expertise inform me and guide my decisions and priorities. We've discussed ocean research and information needs, talked about the changing ocean conditions, hazard resiliency, fisheries management, so there's a lot of topics to discuss. I wanted to mention briefly regional ocean partnerships funded by NOAA grants to applicants on a competitive basis that really have helped set up state and regional management priorities. I see this as an important partnership for addressing offshore energy siting, environmental conservation, and marine debris cleanup, and all these other issues. I know the governors in most coastal states have voluntarily formed similar partnerships, and despite successes in this area, unfortunately, the fiscal year 14 omnibus appropriations bill zeroed out the funding for NOAA's regional ocean partnerships. I was disappointed with that, but joined my colleagues on a letter to House Appropriations supporting a $10 million request for funds for the fiscal year. We're going to continue to work to try to get some funding because those partnerships are so important. So thank you again for all you're doing, for the opportunity to meet with you, and I think, do I have time for questions? Eric or Ryan or anybody? Yes.
With the marine, I'm Larry Swanson from Stony Brook University.
Hi.
With the Marine Debris Emergency Act, I'm curious, does it address trying to prevent marine debris? And the reason I ask is after Sandy, we had so much debris in New York
Right.
and New Jersey that it was just piled up in parking lots and was becoming a health hazard, and there was no way to get rid of it. And a lot of it still potentially had the possibility of getting out into the marine environment. So instead of just, are we receiving it, does the bill address preventing it from occurring?
This particular bill does not. This has to do with getting the grant funding out in an expeditious way to help clean up debris, but there are other pieces of legislation and other efforts that NOAA works on, particularly to reduce marine debris. There's always marine debris, and they're always working on that. This bill deals with marine debris emergencies. It's not limited, of course, to the tsunami debris from the Japanese earthquake. It's anything that's defined as a marine debris emergency.
Thank you.
So this particular bill does not address that issue, but it is something that's important and needs to be addressed. I see a hand back in the back.
Congressman, my name is Suzanne Bonamici. I'm from
Lisa.
Thank you for being here today. Just a quick comment. I wanted to thank you for your support for funding for regional ocean partnerships. It's really important, and
Yes,
we
indeed.
appreciate your leadership on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks for all the good work you're doing. Hi.
Mark out of Oregon State University.
Hi, Mark.
Thanks for coming. The question relates to earlier work on the satellite remote sensing side, the Earth remote sensing, because you're on that committee as well. I'm curious on your thinking about the separation between NOAA's response on weather forecasting and their satellite missions and NOAA's or NASA's Earth science mission that's now assuming more of what we call climate sensors, which used to be in the NOAA side. I'm curious how you think that will play out.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question, and thank you to Oregon State. I happen to be a duck from the University of Oregon. However, I have Ryan from my office here, who's not only a beaver but a dedicated, loyal beaver. So thanks to Oregon State, and thanks for the question. We've actually had a lot of discussions in the Science Committee about weather forecasting and the best way to improve weather forecasting. And I've been working on a bill that was introduced by a couple of colleagues across the aisle. We sat down over several months and worked on improving that bill. It started out as a bill to take money out of climate research and put it all into the NWS for weather forecasting. The witnesses who testified in the committee explained that we must research climate to improve weather forecasting, so we ended up instead with an approach that really does make more connections between research and the Weather Service. And there's also some potential for some public-private partnerships with satellites. So we're hoping to see that bill move forward with a lot of potential to make those connections between research and weather, and we hope that addresses that concern.
Representative Bonamici, first of all, thanks for your leadership on these efforts
You're
with
welcome.
the harmful algal blooms and the other things you mentioned. It's really important.
HABs, we call it.
Yes, I guess I want to ask maybe a difficult question for you because we in the scientific community, of course, read the news that's oriented towards science, and we see some things coming out of the Science Committee which strikes us as sort of anti-science. Some of the leaders of the committee and the like. And I'm wondering whether you can tell us whether there's some discussion among the members of the committee more broadly across the parties to basically come to a better sense of the importance of science in this society for the nation and how we can treat science respectfully, but also how science can be more useful to the nation.
Thank you. And do we have a couple hours to talk about this? I share your concern. I definitely share your concern. And I'll give you one example. We've had several hearings on climate change. In fact, we had a hearing today about the EPA's proposed regulation of new power facilities, which kind of turned into a hearing about climate change. Every single expert witness who came to testify in that hearing testified that humans contribute to climate change. There are still members of the committee who do not agree with that, and they're on the Science Committee. And I don't know why the Science Committee attracts people who don't believe in science, but for some reason it does. And all I can say is that there are many members, there are members on both sides of the aisle who believe in science, but there are some who don't. And some of the legislation that I've seen and some of the bills that pass out of the Science Committee and, well, in general pass off the floor, we know fortunately won't go anywhere in the Senate or be signed by the President. But we really have to focus on the science and looking at the science. And we bring to our hearing, we bring experts and scientists. We have great staff to the Science Committee who inform us and help us with our policy making. But there is, I don't know if it's because of people who just feel the government is overreaching or just have very different fundamental beliefs about the purpose of government. But you're right, it is a concern, and it's sort of a mystery about why those people want to serve on the Science Committee. But all I can say is that I know I will continue to consult with scientists, to meet with scientists, to listen to scientists, to read as much as I can, to make sure that my decisions are based on science, and assure you that there are many others who do the same. Well, thank you again. I'm sorry I'm out of time, but thanks for all your good work.